Ladies and gentlemen, can I please have your attention?
So that's the automatic reverse slot wiring. Plug that into the pulse bar in the front. Here's your switch. It goes into the back, into the custom relay. That white wire goes to your ECM. That's the trigger wire for reverse. These two wires go to your positive and negative on your battery terminal, and that's what's going to turn on your reverse slots. And the switch I got, you can either manually turn them on by that, turn them off and on manually, or when you click it here in reverse, it uses the trigger wire from the ECM to trigger the reverse lights. So if you leave it in this position, it'll automatically come on and off, or you can manually still turn them on. So that's where I have it mounted. I just got it screwed to the plastic, and it comes in this waterproof box. So here's everything in it. Okay, so there is the signal wire from ECU, and this is ground triggered. So it's got 8 to 10 volts on it all the time, and whenever it goes to reverse, it closes the circuit, and this goes to ground, and all this shoots the signal out to the lights to turn on. So those two blue wires are the trigger wires. There's two of them. You got the ground coming in from the ECU, going through this diode.
A diode looks something like this, and it comes in different sizes. They typically have a black cylindrical body that has a stripe at one end, as well as some leads coming out to allow us to connect it into a circuit. This end is known as the anode, and this end is the cathode. A diode allows current to flow in only one direction in a circuit.
The ground coming in from the ECU going through this diode, and then out over here, that's trigger 1. That other blue wire goes to the front, that's the trigger 2 for the manual switch. When the manual switch is clicked on, it closes the circuit to ground, or when the ECU is triggered in reverse, it closes the circuit, and this diode prevents feedback. So if you manually close the switch and this is ground, well, this is connected through here and it won't travel back because this diode prevents electricity flow going back. So this is hot 24/7. If you don't have this diode and you flip it manually to ground, well, then you're going to have a short. On the other side, that's going to your battery, so that's hot 24/7, goes through the fuse, comes out into the relay, that's hot all the time, and this right here goes to the lights, hot all the time. This is ground, going straight to the frame, and what triggers it is this little mini relay here. So that's the 2 trigger wires, ECU, trigger wire. That black one right there is the ground trigger for the reverse lights. So that is the one that triggers the lights come on and off. So the lights have power 24/7, but they do not have ground all the time. Whenever the ECU goes into reverse or you manually flip the switch, this black wire goes to ground, completes the circuit. And that's all, fits right in there in a waterproof thing. So here's the front switch. So when it's in that position, the ECU controls the lights, or you can manually turn the lights on and off. And when the lights come on, it also turns the backup camera on. So this is pretty simple. That's your switched hot, so whenever the key is on, that's hot. And then the little black wire is your ground. That's going to ground 24/7. And that wire right there in the sheave is that wire right there in the wire loom is the wire going to the ECU that outputs power all the time. That's the switched ground. So anytime the ECU goes to reverse, that turns into a ground. So I tapped off that wire for the ground on the camera. So the camera's got 3 wires. It's got a power, a trigger wire, and a ground. So the power and the trigger wire I tied together and run to a switched on. So whenever the switch is on, anytime the switch is on, it's got power and it's got trigger, but it does not have ground. So I ran the ground wire around, and the ground wire ties into this. And to prevent backfeeding, I put a diode in it. This wire right here going to the ECU's got power on it all the time. So the ground wire for the camera, this wire, I had to put a diode in it to prevent electricity from flowing that way. So a diode prevents electricity flow one way or the other, depending on which way you flip it. So whenever the ECU gets grounded by going in reverse, or you manually flip this button, this ground wire going to the camera turns to a ground, and it turns the camera on as well. It's pretty simple wiring. Really, you only got 3 wires. You got a switched hot, a constant ground, and the wire coming from the ECU is hot all the time until it goes to reverse, or you manually flip this switch. And that is going to the camera. That is the ground wire to the camera with a diode in it to prevent backfeed. So you can see there's the camera, backup camera right there, and anytime the key is not on, when you manually try to turn it on, nothing happens. So once the key is on, the lights come on, and when the key is fully on, now that's off the ECU automatically, and if I manually press this, it'll come on too. So I'm gonna click it. You can see it come on. So the reverse lights and the camera are on at the same time. Then when I go to this, it turns off. It turns off, and it's only going to come on when I put it in reverse. So if I put it in reverse, it comes on automatically. And then when I get out of reverse, goes back off.